Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be showing you how to begin the third and last single view drawing for TIJ1O1 Grade 9 Exploring Technologies course, and that drawing is called the arrow. So I'm already inside the hub, and I'm going to be clicking on arrow just to take a look at the PDF document. I also have this open on my iPad. And it's a little difficult to see embedded in the hub, so I'm going to download it so I can get a better look at it for this video. Okay, so we're going to open this up, and we are going to rotate it again. All right, so when we look at this drawing, what do I notice about it? Well, it can't be drawn with ortho mode because the whole drawing is angular, right? So it's a polar mode drawing. And by the third drawing, we should start to understand the difference between ortho mode and polar mode, right? Ortho mode draws perfectly vertical and horizontal lines, and polar mode draws accurate lines on any angle you choose. But when I look at this, I notice that the overall length is 190 millimeters and the overall height is 120 millimeters. So that's information that I can work with. Also, the angle used here is 75 degrees. 15 degrees and 45 degrees, and then here it's also listed as 15 and 15. So I think I'm ready to get started. I'm going to be using my iPad as a reference when I complete this drawing, so I won't be constantly clicking back and forth from this image to my AutoCAD screen. But I do need to click back into the hub and go back and download the arrow DWG AutoCAD file here. So I'm going to select that, hit download, and then open up the border. Hit open, and here it is. So the first thing I should do is save it. So go up to the big A, hit the drop down arrow, hit save as, and it's in my downloads, which I don't want, so I'm going to click over to desktop. I'm going to find my collection of files, semester 2. I'm going to be putting it in my AutoCAD drawings, arrow, save. Alright, so it's where it needs to be. When I look at the border is the same as what we've seen in the previous two drawings, except this time there is no origin. Now, is that a mistake? No, it's not a mistake. Purposely, I have not included an origin because I'm going to be drawing this one differently. I'm still going to be centering it within the drawing area of the border. So the top of the title block line to the top horizontal exterior line and so on, I'm still going to be centering it, but I'm going to be doing it differently. So what I'm going to be doing is finding the middle first. So if I flash my cursor over this line and this line, it highlights, right? It's showing that when I touch it, the line is active from the very top to the start of the title block information. So what I'm going to be doing is drawing a line, picking up the midpoint snap. So I grab line, come over here, find the midpoint snap, left click, and come down and left click the midpoint here. Now to exit the command, I can right click my mouse and left click enter. So I don't know if I've shown you that yet, but that's an easy way to escape a command if you don't actually want to touch the keyboard. You can do everything right from your computer mouse. And I can also right click my mouse, left click repeat line, find the midpoint here, and click to the midpoint here. Left click, and then to end the command, right click my mouse, left click enter. So as we go, we're going to keep introducing some shortcuts, some ways to do things we already know how to do, but do them a little easier. All right, so this divides that drawing area in the border into 4 equal quadrants. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to be using a command we've already learned in Modify called offset. So we're going to be offsetting this vertical line to the left and to the right, the length of the arrow. So I know that the arrow is 190 millimeters long because I'm looking at that image on my iPad right now. So I need to offset half of 190. So you can do that in a calculator, or you can actually just do it in your head. 190 divided by 2 is 95. So I'll type 95 in the command line and hit enter. And now I'm ready to offset. So I'm going to pick this vertical line, click to the left, and then click this line again where I began and click to the right. And then right click, left click, enter to escape the command or end the command. All right, so now I know where the arrow is going to start and begin in length. Now I need to actually do the same with the horizontal line and get the width of it in place in terms of limits. So I can right click my mouse, left click repeat offset, and now type in the next values. So the image tells me that the arrow is 120 millimeters wide. It also gives me a simple 60 dimension from the center line to the bottom. So I can just type in 60, enter, and click this line and click above, click this horizontal line again and click below. And again, right click, left click, enter to end the command. So it may be difficult to see, but I have the extents or the limits of the arrow centered within the drawing border or drawing area. Now, to make this a little easier to understand, this vertical line here is not going to be needed. So I can select it with a grip and I can hit the erase and I can remove it. Now, I need to trim the access lines away. So I'm going to use the trim tool and modify. So I'm going to select trim and I'm going to select the lines that I want to keep. This is how trim works. So select the lines that you want to keep, and then you can hit enter key, or you can right click your mouse to activate the trim. So I right clicked my mouse this time, and then the message changed to select object to trim or shift select to extend, or all you need to do now is go around and left click what you want to trim away. Just like that. And then right click, left click, enter to end the command. So just to be clear on how trim works, and I'm just going to do a little quick demonstration again to the right, and then I'm just going to erase this. So if I have a line, I draw a line here, any length, doesn't really matter how long it is. Right click, left click, repeat line, and I draw a line passing through it like this. Let's say I want to trim this horizontal line all the way back to this vertical line. This is how you do it with trim. Pick trim from the modify toolbar, and it says select objects. I want to select the object I want to use as a boundary for my trim. So remember, I want to trim this part of the line away. But I'm not going to select that first. I'm going to select the boundary, which is this vertical line right here. Once I select it with a left click, it'll turn a bit blue. Then I can hit enter or right click my mouse. I'm going to right click my mouse. It's going to change from select objects to trim. And then I pick what I want to trim, and it gives me a little preview with a little X showing me what it's going to get rid of. If I left click it, it trims it right back to that vertical line. So it's the same thing happening here in the arrow. I'm just going to erase these lines because I don't need them. We selected the boundaries to use as the start for our trimming process. So if I was to measure this, now centered, I have something 190 millimeters long. Let's repeat the measure, and I have something 120 millimeters high. So that's perfect. Also, because the arrow is symmetrical, there's a center line passing through the middle horizontally. So that means that this line here can be selected, and it can be changed in the layer manager to a center line, like that. Okay, so now we're ready to start drawing some information on angles. So we've established that the angles at the back are about 15 degrees, 75 degrees, and that the arrow head angle is about 45 degrees. So I'm going to start with the head of the arrow, which exists on the right side of the drawing here. So ortho mode is on. So I need to get out of ortho mode and turn on polar. So I'm going to select polar mode, click it on. It's going to throw me out of ortho mode, automatically turning that off. And I'm going to right click polar mode and make sure it's set to 45 degrees, which it is. So since it is, I'm going to click out. I'm going to go and get my line command. And I'm going to snap to the midpoint. And I'm going to draw a line on an increment of 45 degrees. Now remember how polar works. Polar will pick up all increments of 45 degrees with that green, broken green beam of light. And AutoCAD does everything counterclockwise. So if I pull the line to the right, it's gonna give me a flat beam and show me 0 degrees. If I come up like this, it's going to find 45 degrees. It's always going to want to activate that beam when it finds an increment of 45 degrees. So if I come up straight, it's going to be 90 degrees. If I come a little more, it's going to add 45 to 90 and give me 135 degrees. See how that works? So 135 degrees is the same as 45. Because AutoCAD does everything in a counterclockwise direction, right? When I turn my mouse like this, I'm going counterclockwise. So 0, 45, 90, 135 is the same thing. It finds that increment. So when I see that green beam active, and I'm on 135 degrees, I'm going to come down and find the intersection snap and left click. And now I know I've drawn a line on 45 degrees. I can continue on, but I need to change my polar angle because the angle used everywhere else on this drawing is 15 degrees. So I need to change my angle. So I can still leave the line command running, but I have to go back to polar and right click it again and change this from 45 degrees to 15 degrees. So I'll left click 15, and now it's going to find increments of 15 degrees only. So this is really important to change your polar angle as you're drawing, because once you see the green beam, you know it's going to be perfect. Of course, it doesn't tell me how long to draw this line. Right? This is our 45 degrees I just drawn. I'm coming down on an angle of 15 degrees, but it doesn't tell me how long it is. So I have to work with what I know first. So I'm just going to make the line any length. I can even bring it all the way down to the center line if I want, which I'll do. So I'll come down on an angle of 75 degrees. That is the same as 15 degrees, because if straight down is 90 degrees, 15 less is 75. It's the same thing. So I'm going to come down to the center line and left click at the intersection. And now I'm going to have to right click, left click, enter to end the command, because I'm going to have to start now at the rear. I've done all I can do at the front at this point. So the next angle is shown as 75 degrees from here to this, from this horizontal extension line to this angular line. If I look to the bottom, it's dimensioned in a different way. It's dimensioned as 15 degrees from the extension line that's totally vertical to this angle, and it's the same thing horizontally. So again, I'm still using a 15-degree angle. I am not going to be changing my polar angle to continue. It's still set for 15 degrees. So I'm going to grab the line, left click, find the endpoint, and come down on an angle of 75 degrees, just like the drawing shows you on the hub. Some students will make the mistake and draw it at an increment of 60. That's incorrect. Remember, polars set the increments of 15. So that is 90. 15 less would be 75. 15 less would be 60. That's incorrect. So we'll come back to 75 and we'll come, we don't know, well actually we do know how long this line is. It goes right down to the center line. So we're just going to come down, find the intersection, and left click. And then right click, left click, enter to end the command. We have one last line to draw. It's on the same angle, 15 degrees. We're going to right click our mouse, left click, repeat line. Find the endpoint at the top left hand corner again, and come down on an angle of 15 degrees. And this 15-degree line, not 30, but 15, is going to come and meet the polar intersection of this angular line. So find the intersection, left click, and then right click, left click, enter to end the command. So now we know the length of this line, right? We had to actually draw this line on 15 degrees to be able to find out how long it needed to be. So now that we know how long it is, we can trim this line. So how do we trim? Well, I'm going to pick the boundary first. This line represents the boundary I'm trimming to. This line represents the line I want to delete or erase. So I go to trim, select the object, which means select the boundary to trim to, left click, right click my mouse to activate the command, and then left click the part of the line I want to erase. And there it's done. I'm going to right click, left click, enter to end. Now, obviously, when we look at the arrow, this is a symmetrical drawing. This center line represents symmetry. So what are we going to do? Are we going to draw this all over again, the same underneath? No, we're going to mirror it. We learned how to use the mirror in the W drawing. We're going to learn how to use, well, we've learned how to use it. We're going to practice it in this drawing, is what I should say. So we're going to select mirror. It says select the object. So this is what I want to mirror. all these polar lines I've drawn. I'm going to select them. Once I've selected them, I can hit enter or right click, and then it says specify first point of mirror line. So I have to pick somewhere to mirror from as a origin. So I can pick right here at the top or the tip of the arrowhead. Once I see endpoint snap, I can left click and it starts to preview the other half of the arrow. Now it's swinging all over the place. I could easily make a mistake here. So what am I going to do? Turn ortho back on. Now look, I can only mirror this one of two ways. When I see the preview I like, I can left click again. I can't use the same endpoint I started with when you mirror. The 2 points have to be distinct. So when you see the preview you like, you can really click anywhere on the screen as long as you're not clicking here where you started from. So I see the preview I like, I'll left click right there. AutoCAD pops a message and says erase the source object, yes or no. We're going to say no. We want to keep the top half. So left click N for no, and we're done. So all we have to do is erase the border around the arrow. Now this can't be trimmed because it's not overlapping any geometry. So the best way to get rid of this would be just to select these lines when you're not in a command. Use your grips and then just hit the delete key or hit the erase tool at modify, and that's going to remove those lines for you. What do we know about center lines? Well, center lines need to extend beyond the feature that they're attached to by about 6 millimeters per side. So this center line has to be extended. So we're going to select it using a grip, left click, and we're going to pull it 6 millimeters out, type 6, type enter. And then I can't hit escape. You can hit escape to deselect, but if I hit escape, I'm going to end up cutting my video off short. Because my video recording software, the escape key actually ends the video quite abruptly. So I have to be a little clunky about this. And, I can hit enter, it erases it. So I have to undo that. Or I have to do some fancy clicking. So in your case, you can just hit escape to deselect something when you're using a grip. All right, what else do we have here? The back of the center line here, it needs to be accurately gripped out 6 millimeters as well. So what we can do is we can just draw a line from here to here, and you can see that the center line is in line with the top left endpoint. So all we have to do is just select it and grip it out another 6 millimeters, and that's it. Just going to deselect that. And there you have it. That is the quick and easy way to complete that arrow drawing. So now you're free to try this. Let me know if you have any issues with it, and I will be around to give you a hand. Thank you.